think the ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience is to be.
I have to object to that.
But you just said
I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient human being. You're right. There's two ways you cannot understand something. One is to be too far from it. We're too far from it. We can't see like you can. One is to be too close to something. And then sometimes you can't see it accurately either.
Bill Maher has completely burned his ties with the left and is now heading straight toward political isolation. And even though he has not openly admitted this shift, his fiery takedowns and harsh clashes with Democratic guests have already exposed the reality. In one explosive episode, he completely destroyed his guest for using race as a weapon, delivering such a relentless verbal attack that viewers were left speechless. The impact was brutal, a complete verbal destruction that showed just how far Maher has moved away from the safe space he once had, and with every new clash, he only strengthens his role as a rebel voice, openly calling out hypocrisy that his old allies are desperate to hide. The change is crystal clear. The platform he once shared with the left has been set ablaze, and now he stands alone, using his words like weapons and refusing to step back, leaving both audiences and critics shocked at how fast he is breaking down the walls of political loyalty.
I noticed that at the Super Bowl, there, for the first time in I think 4 years now, the Trump administration is making them take away "end racism," which they had written in the end zone, right? And when
why? It just seems silly. I mean,
to do it or not to do it?
Why get rid of it?
Oh, I could tell you why.
I know, but it's just like you're.
Because it was stupid to begin with.
Yeah, but
let me ask you, who is it for? And if you're a racist and you see "end racism" in the end zone, you're going to stop being a racist?
That was leftist media correspondent Tara Palmieri putting on display the woke left's usual style of empty virtue signaling, throwing around buzzwords as if they were real answers. But Bill Maher was not fooled for even a second. He cut her off mid-spin with one sharp question that instantly exposed the weakness of her argument, and in that moment she froze, with no witty comeback, no clever dodge. Just the clear realization that her slogans had no strength when tested against reality, and that right there highlights the bigger issue, because too often the left confuses catchy lines and moral posturing for actual progress. They keep shouting about justice, equity, and inclusion. But when the focus turns to real issues like crime, border security, inflation, or national defense, their slogans disappear and the silence is loud. Maher's challenge was a powerful reminder that words without real substance are nothing but noise, and it leaves you asking if these activists ever stop to realize that their chants and hashtags do nothing to help ordinary Americans who are facing real struggles every single day.
But the sentiment is basically like, don't be a.
But I think it's an effort to nag us during a football game about something that doesn't change anything or any. If I'm not a racist and I see it, it doesn't matter. And if I am a racist, it's gonna make me more of a racist.
Like, I think if you write "don't be an on the end zone," everybody will agree with that.
Now, for anyone who hasn't been paying attention, the "end racism" slogan didn't vanish because the president waved a hand. It faded because corporate America finally snapped out of its own woke-induced coma. For nearly a decade, CEOs and PR teams bowed down, covering every campaign with hollow slogans and rainbow-colored logos just to keep the Twitter mob and fringe activists off their backs. It was never about solving real problems. It was always about survival in a culture ruled by outrage. But here's the twist no one saw coming. The tide has turned, the woke grip has loosened, and companies are quietly backing away, dropping the empty virtue signals and returning to their old messaging in simple terms. The mob no longer scares them, the hashtags no longer control them, and the era of fake pandering has finally run out of style.
The previous administration, we would have inquiries. We would request information. We would want cabinet secretaries and assistant secretaries and deputy secretaries to come before committee. We would send letter after letter after letter and get no response. The Biden administration operated literally in the shadows. They would not tell you anything that was going on. At least Donald Trump puts it out in the litany of orders that come out that day. Here's what we're doing today. We're going into the Department of Justice. We are taking these attorneys and they are under supervisory review, or however they choose to phrase it. You knew nothing that was going on in Joe Biden's presidency.
Meanwhile, these same people have the nerve to march around calling themselves defenders of democracy. But what kind of democracy hides the truth from its own citizens? With them, transparency is nothing but an illusion. Every story is layered. With secrecy, every press conference is staged like a play, and every narrative is twisted until reality barely exists. And when they finally decide to admit something, it's never the whole truth. It's just another layer of spins stacked on top of lies. Because with the Democrats, the closer you look, the less there really is behind the curtain. It's all smoke, mirrors, and political theater meant to distract the public. And the contrast with Trump couldn't be clearer. Agree with him or not, his entire brand was built on promises delivered, while Democrats have mastered the art of broken promises. Just look at Biden, who vowed he would honor the rule of law and let his son face justice. Yet when the moment of truth came, he pulled the strings to protect him. A textbook example of hypocrisy that shows exactly why so many Americans have lost faith in their so-called leaders.
Bunch of privileged mean girls complaining about privilege and trying to make fetch happen. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Oh, right, and then re-elected him. Maybe you missed it because it wasn't on TikTok.
Bill Maher didn't back down for a moment. He kept pressing Tara Palm Mary for doing exactly what so many on the left are guilty of, shutting their eyes to reality and filtering every issue through the same old lens of race and gender. It's the same tired script the Democratic National Committee has been running for years. Divide people into groups, push identity politics, and hope no one notices the glaring absence of real solutions. But the truth is, Americans aren't buying it anymore. Voters have caught on, and the DNC's once polished playbook now feels less like a winning strategy and more like a bad rerun. The real tragedy is that instead of learning, adapting, or offering genuine answers, they keep clinging to that hill, doubling down on the same divisive narratives that once gave them power but now highlight just how hollow their platform really is. And Maher's pushback drove the point home. This obsession with identity over real substance isn't just weak, it's a losing game, and whether they admit it or not, the clock is running out on a strategy that's already past its expiration date.
And sexism? Hillary got 3 million more votes than Trump, which in a normal country would be called a victory. It wasn't 21st century sexism that prevented a woman from being president. It was the Electoral College. Democrats run for office as if the voters don't live here, as if they don't go to the grocery store and Starbucks and the office, but they do. They live here.
The Democrats love to recycle the excuse that America didn't vote for Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton simply because they're women, using gender as a shield to deflect from their own failures. But as Bill Maher bluntly pointed out, that has never been the truth. Voters didn't reject them because of gender. They rejected them because the Democratic Party refuses to deal with the issues that actually affect everyday Americans. Instead of addressing rising costs, border chaos, violent crime in major cities, or the collapsing trust in government, Democrats waste time obsessing over pronouns, policing language, and turning every debate into another lecture on gender or race. And Maher's critique hits hard because it's true. People aren't against female candidates. They're against a party that looks more focused on identity politics than real solutions. And that's exactly why Democrats keep losing, ground with the very voters they claim to fight for.
They actually see women and people of color, and it doesn't look like some patriarchal racist nightmare. Kamala spent 100 days telling voters, I know it feels like crime and illegal immigration are bad, but f your feelings, look at this chart. Yes, there's a lot to not like already about the new regime, but maybe take 1 week to ask what you did wrong. The basis for Democratic campaigns has become, we're the smart people. That we know from the get-go.
And that right there has always been the real problem with the Democrats. They walk around convinced they are the smartest people in every room, and anyone who dares to disagree with their worldview or refuses to accept their ideology is instantly labeled ignorant, backward, or uneducated. It's an arrogance so thick it shows up in every speech, every debate, and every media clip. And on top of that, they can't resist endless moral grandstanding, lecturing the rest of the country as if they alone own virtue. And frankly, it's exhausting because this holier-than-thou posture hasn't just made them unbearable, It has driven a wedge straight through the heart of the nation. Instead of persuading, they shame. Instead of building coalitions, they alienate anyone outside their bubble. And in doing so, they've managed to push away more than half the country, leaving behind a party that brands itself as inclusive, while in reality thriving on the politics of exclusion.
Well, all you have to do is ask my father, who literally was shot in the Orangeburg Massacre, right? Who helped found SNCC, who marched with Marion Barry and Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King, and the list goes on and on and on. And he will tell you today that he feels like this country's at 1954. And so if you want to talk about somebody—
But that doesn't mean it is.
Well,
you said he feels that way. That's ridiculous. It is.
And the moment you refuse to go along with their philosophies or policies, Democrats instantly accuse you of wanting to drag America back to the Dark Ages. It's their go-to scare tactic, painting anyone who disagrees as some kind of backward caveman. But the truth is, America has come a very long way since the 1960s. Women not only vote, they hold powerful seats in Congress, they run Fortune 500 companies, and yes, they even run for president. And on top of that, we already have our first female vice president, who also happens to be a woman of color, and that milestone alone proves the old narratives no longer hold weight. America is not stuck in the past. It keeps moving forward and opening doors that were once unthinkable. Yet instead of celebrating how far the nation has come, the left keeps pretending nothing has changed, clinging to a brand of victimhood politics that no longer matches the reality of today.
I think the ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience is to be.
I have to object to that.
But you just said
I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient human being. You're right. There's two ways you cannot understand something. One is to be too far from it. We're too far from it. We can't see like you can. One is to be too close to something. And then sometimes you can't see it accurately either.
Bill Maher didn't hold back when Barry Sellers started sliding into race-baiting territory, with Sellers insisting that people of a different color could never truly understand what Black Americans go through. But Maher wasn't buying it. He pushed back firmly, pointing out that perspective cuts both ways, because being too close to an issue can blind you just as much as being on the outside. Maher explained that while Sellers was clearly passionate, he might actually be so caught up in the story of racial struggle that he could no longer step back and see the bigger picture. It was a bold but necessary reminder that understanding is not defined only by skin color, and that constantly forcing every discussion through the narrow filter of race often makes solutions harder to see rather than easier. And Maher's challenge highlighted a deeper truth. Proximity doesn't always equal clarity, and sometimes it takes distance and perspective to truly see the root of a problem.
And that.
I know.
And so, but what I am saying though is for you to discount my father's experience and say
I'm not discounting it.
And to say it was silly.
I'm not.
No, he was shot.
No
Were
shit.
you shot?
No, but he's still alive. Like he's right here. Like
Right, but the idea that if I were to say to you as a Jew that the experience of Jews in the United States today is worse than the experience of Jews in Europe in 1939, I would not be stating accurately.
Correct.
It's not true.
That's
It's also not true to say that the experience of black people in America in 2024 is worse on a general level than the experience of black men in 1954 in Alabama. That's just crazy.
Many of these so-called race experts have built entire careers and even huge bank accounts on the idea that America is permanently racist, and their entire livelihood depends on keeping that narrative alive. So naturally, they will twist facts, exaggerate stories, and stir outrage just to protect their position, because if the conversation ever shifted toward acknowledging real progress, their influence and paychecks would dry up overnight. The uncomfortable truth they refuse to admit is that black lives in America today are undeniably better than they were decades ago. Opportunities once unimaginable are now reality, whether in politics, business, entertainment, or education. We've seen black mayors, governors, senators, billionaires, CEOs, and even a two-term black president. That doesn't mean challenges don't exist, but pretending nothing has changed is simply dishonest. And deep down, even they know it. Progress is real, but admitting it would put them out of business. In the end, the left clings to hollow slogans, race baiting, and endless moral posturing while ignoring both the progress that has been achieved and the real problems that remain. And Maher's pushback exposed that weakness in a way that could not be ignored, because empty narratives can never replace substance. America has come far, but Democrats refuse to acknowledge it because their power depends on pretending otherwise.